Imagine two apartments in the same neighborhood. Same city, same grocery stores, same rent prices, same view outside the window. Now open the first door. A 75-inch television dominates the living room. There's a $4,000 leather couch, designer furniture, boxes in the hallway, a closet that barely closes, a kitchen full of gadgets that sounded useful 6 months ago. The person living here makes $95,000 a year. And somehow every Friday he is checking his bank account to see if he can make it to payday. Now open the second door, same neighborhood, much quieter room, a modest television, a simple couch, clear counters, almost nothing sitting out. The person who lives here makes $52,000 a year. Yet she has 18 months of living expenses saved and automatically invests 20% of her income. And here is the uncomfortable part. The person earning almost twice as much may have a fraction of the financial security. That sounds backwards until you understand one idea. Wealth is not what comes into your life. Wealth is what stays available to you after your lifestyle has taken its share. I'm David Marshall, and today we are going to break down 10 minimalist rules that can lower lifestyle creep, increase financial margin, reduce the mental pressure around money, and quietly build serious wealth. Stay with me, because rule number 8 changes the entire way you think about getting a raise. And rule number 9 will show you why a person with fewer possessions can actually have more power. And before we get into it, subscribe to David Marshall Finance if you want practical money psychology without the hype. Now let's walk back into that first apartment. The television is not just a television. The couch is not just a couch. The closet is not just a closet. Everything you own costs money twice. First, you pay the purchase price. Then you keep paying for the privilege of continuing to own it. That second payment is the carrying cost. It can be obvious, like maintenance, insurance, storage, repairs, taxes, or subscriptions. But some of the biggest costs are hidden. Space has a cost. Attention has a cost. Opportunity cost has a cost. A room filled with things cannot be used for something else. Money locked inside furniture cannot be invested in index funds. A storage unit in a city can easily run $30 to $50 per square foot per year depending on the market and the kind of space. That means the old furniture you never use is not sitting there for free. You are renting real estate to your past decisions, and there is another cost nobody puts on the receipt: visual clutter, stress. Every object asks a tiny question. Should I clean this? Should I fix this? Should I move this? Why did I buy this? What if I need this someday? Multiply that by hundreds of objects and your home becomes an open browser with 500 tabs. Financial margin gets eaten in the same way. Not in one dramatic purchase, but in dozens of small permanent commitments. This is how lifestyle creep works. You get a raise, your apartment gets nicer, your car gets newer, your subscriptions increase, your dining budget expands, your monthly obligations rise. Nothing feels outrageous by itself, but your financial margin disappears. And once the higher lifestyle becomes normal, reducing it feels like losing something. That is the hedonic treadmill. You move forward financially, but your emotional baseline moves with you. So here is rule number 1. Calculate cost per use. Stop asking only, can I afford this? Start asking, how much will I pay every time I actually use it? Imagine a $200 jacket you wear twice. That is $100 per use. Now imagine a $400 jacket you wear 200 times. That is $2 per use. The cheaper purchase is actually the expensive one. This is why minimalism is not about buying the cheapest thing. It is about buying fewer things that earn their place in your life. A $100 tool used once is worse than a $300 tool used for 10 years. A cheap coffee maker replaced every year can cost more over time than a reliable machine used daily. Cost per use forces you to think in behaviors, not excitement. And that matters because impulse buying is usually powered by a fantasy version of yourself. You are not buying the blender. You are buying the imagined mornings where you become the person who makes perfect smoothies every day. You are not buying the camping gear, you are buying the identity of the person who finally goes camping. Cost per use asks a brutal question: will the future version of me actually use this? But there is an even stronger question coming, because sometimes the best purchase is the one you decide not to make at all. That takes us to rule number 2, use the replacement test. Look at something you own that barely gets used: a gadget, an extra chair, a second camera, a kitchen appliance. Some exercise equipment, then imagine it disappeared tonight. You wake up tomorrow and it is gone. Here is the question: would you buy it again today? Not would you miss the memory attached to it. Not did you once think it was a good deal. Would you spend your current money to own it again? If the answer is no, you have learned something important. You are carrying an object that does not deserve its carrying cost. This is why the replacement test is so powerful. It separates sentimental attachment from economic value, and it gets even more revealing when you apply it to recurring expenses. If your premium gym membership disappeared, would you buy it again? If your expensive phone plan vanished, would you sign up again? If your second card disappeared, would you replace it tomorrow? The answer tells you what your current priorities actually are, not what they used to be. Now here is where minimalist finance gets interesting, because a lot of people do not overspend because they are irresponsible. They overspend because they upgrade out of boredom. That is rule number 3. Never upgrade out of boredom. If something is mechanically broken, unsafe, or genuinely preventing you from doing what you need to do, that is different. Replace it, but boredom is not a repair bill. Marketing wants you to confuse novelty with necessity. Your current phone works perfectly, but the new one has a slightly better camera. Your current car runs fine, but the new one has a larger screen. Your current laptop does everything you need, but the new model feels faster in the commercial. None of these are emergencies. They are invitations to reset your spending baseline. Let's take a 30-year view. Suppose unnecessary upgrades and lifestyle expansions cost you $500 a month on average. You can argue the exact number, but the principle is what matters. $500 a month invested consistently for 30 years with reasonable long-term market returns can grow into hundreds of thousands of dollars. Depending on the return assumption, you are talking about a difference that can approach or exceed $200,000. That is not a couch. That is not a phone. That is retirement security. That is a year of living expenses. That is sabbatical funding. That is financial freedom arriving years earlier. And this is where opportunity cost becomes real. Every lifestyle upgrade competes with asset growth. The money you send into consumption cannot compound at the same time inside your investments. The fourth rule attacks the biggest myth in personal finance. Rule number 4, create friction for spending and ease for saving. Most people think financial discipline is about willpower. It is not. Willpower is a limited resource. Environment is more powerful. If your phone has 6 shopping apps, one-click purchases, saved payment methods, and notifications saying today only, you are asking your brain to fight a machine built by behavioral scientists. Delete the shopping apps. Remove saved cards where possible. Unsubscribe from promotional emails. Put your credit card somewhere less convenient. Create a 24-hour waiting rule for non-essential purchases. And now do the opposite with saving. Make saving automatic on payday. The moment income arrives, send part of it to a separate savings account and part of it to investments. Make index funds the boring destination for long-term money. You should not need motivation to save. The system should save before you can spend. This is willpower versus environment. If the environment is engineered for consumption, you will consume. If the environment is engineered for saving, you will save. And that takes us to rule number 5. Count your possessions. Yes, literally count them. Not because there is a magical number that makes you minimalist. There is not. Count them because counting creates awareness. Pick categories: shoes, kitchen appliances, jackets, electronics, hobby equipment, bags. Then set a threshold. Maybe you decide you only need 10 pairs of shoes. If you are already at 10, another pair requires you to remove one. That becomes your one in, one out policy. The goal is not deprivation, the goal is awareness. You are making the hidden inventory visible because consumerism works best when spending feels invisible. One purchase does not feel like a lifestyle. 300 purchases create one. There is another benefit. When you know exactly what you own, replacement decisions become smarter. You stop buying duplicates. You stop searching for things you already have. You stop paying for storage because you can finally see the volume of your own behavior. And once you start counting, something strange happens. You discover that many of the things you wanted were more interesting before you owned them than after. That leads directly to rule number 6. Rent or borrow before you buy. This is one of the most powerful defenses against hobby inflation. You get interested in photography, so you start shopping for a $3,000 camera kit. You think about golf, so suddenly you need clubs, shoes, a bag, a rangefinder, and lessons. You decide to cycle, and now there is a bike, trainer, rack, helmet, tools, lights, and special clothing. But what if you rented first? What if you borrowed? What if you tested the interest before building the ecosystem? This changes the decision from imagination to evidence. You do not buy the identity. You test the behavior. If you still love the activity after 10 rentals, now you have data. And that brings us to rule number 7, the lifestyle multiplier. Some purchases do not stay single. They create ecosystems of related expenses. A boat is the classic example. The boat becomes a trailer. The trailer needs a hitch, the boat needs storage. Storage needs fees, then come repairs, insurance, fuel, maintenance, registration, accessories, safety equipment, and weekend travel to use it. One decision multiplies into 10, that is the lifestyle multiplier. A larger house can multiply furniture needs. A more expensive car can multiply insurance, repairs, tires, fuel, and depreciation. A bigger kitchen can multiply appliances. A new hobby can multiply equipment. The price tag hides the ecosystem. Remember, everything you own costs money twice. But some things cost money 10 times because they create new obligations around themselves. And this is where implicit rent matters. You are not only paying for the object. You are paying for the space it occupies and the lifestyle required to support it. Property carrying costs are another example. A larger home may come with higher insurance, maintenance, property taxes, utilities, and repairs. The purchase price is only one number in the story. Tax drag can quietly reduce what your assets produce too. Every dollar that disappears through friction, taxes, fees, maintenance, or unnecessary consumption is a dollar that cannot contribute to asset growth. There is also a psychological trap underneath all of this. Your brain does not record purchases as isolated financial decisions. It starts adapting to the environment those purchases create. A nicer car can make an ordinary car feel unacceptable. A larger home can make the old home feel cramped. A more expensive restaurant can make a simple dinner feel boring. This is the hedonic treadmill in everyday life. The new standard becomes the standard, and yesterday's luxury becomes tomorrow's expectation. That is why minimalist finance is really a defense against moving goalposts. You are not trying to win a competition against other people. You are trying to keep your future choices from being quietly sold to your present impulses. There is a useful mental picture here. Think of every recurring expense as a tiny employee you have hired. Your car payment wants a piece of every paycheck. Your subscriptions want a piece. Your larger house wants a piece. Your storage unit wants a piece. Your hobby equipment wants a piece. None of them take days off. None of them care whether the economy is strong. They keep asking for money. Now compare that with an investment. A growing asset can potentially send value in your direction without demanding more work from you every month. That is the difference between obligations and optionality. The more of your income trapped inside permanent commitments, the less flexible your life becomes. The more of your income flowing toward liquid resources and productive assets, the more freedom you create. This is why the minimalist question is not, how little can I live with? It is, how little do I need to commit so that I can keep the maximum number of future choices open? That is a completely different philosophy. It does not punish spending. It makes spending compete with freedom. And once you start seeing every purchase through that lens, your financial decisions become much harder for advertising to manipulate. Now we reach the rule that can completely change how you handle a raise. Rule number 8, define enough before you earn more. Most people do the opposite. They earn more first, then decide what they need. This is how the goalposts move. You get a promotion and suddenly the old apartment feels too small. You get another raise and now the old car feels embarrassing. Income rises, spending rises. The amount of money that feels necessary rises with it. That is lifestyle creep. And the frightening part is that you may never notice it because every upgrade feels reasonable at the moment. So define your enough point in advance. Decide what a satisfying lifestyle actually costs. Maybe your household needs $70,000 a year for everything that matters. Maybe it needs $100,000. The number is personal, but establish it. Then treat income above that level differently. The goal is not to stop enjoying money. The goal is to stop letting consumption automatically absorb every increase in income. Imagine getting a $10,000 raise and keeping $8,000 of it as financial margin. That margin can build liquid resources, strengthen your emergency fund, increase retirement contributions, buy index funds, or create a future sabbatical fund. Now imagine doing that after every promotion for 15 years. Your income grew, but your lifestyle did not consume the entire growth. That is how margin compounds, and here is the major reveal. The people who become financially secure are often not the people who earn the most. They are the people who can stop their lifestyle from growing as fast as their income. Their secret is not a special stock. It is not timing the market. It is not an exotic investment strategy. It is a controlled distance between what they can afford and what they choose to spend. That distance is financial margin. And financial margin is what turns income into wealth accumulation. Now, rule number 9, measure wealth by optionality, not accumulation. This is the philosophical center of the entire system. A bigger house is accumulation. A newer car is accumulation. Another closet full of clothes is accumulation. None of these automatically create freedom. Optionality is different. Can you leave a toxic job? Can you take 6 months off? Can you help a family member without panic? Can you reduce your hours? Can you move to a different city? Can you fund a sabbatical? Can you say no to a bad deal because you do not need the paycheck tomorrow? That is wealth. Measure wealth by optionality, not accumulation. Your net worth matters, but your usable freedom matters too. Liquid resources matter because they give you time and choices. A portfolio is not just a number on a screen. It can be months away from work. It can be the ability to negotiate. It can be financial freedom. It can be the power to walk away. Meanwhile, someone with an enormous amount of stuff and a tiny cash buffer may look rich while having almost no options. This is why minimalist finance is not really about empty rooms. It is about protecting the space between you and desperation. The final rule is rule number 10, practice cyclical decluttering, not a giant purge once a year, small reviews every week, 5 minutes, one drawer, one closet shelf, one category, ask what changed, what am I using, what am I carrying, what am I paying for? This prevents clutter from becoming a crisis. And the same principle works with money. Review subscriptions weekly, review automatic expenses monthly, review your savings rate quarterly, review your lifestyle annually. Small corrections beat dramatic rescues. Because financial problems usually become expensive after they are ignored for a long time. A small leak becomes a flood because nobody checks the pipe. Your lifestyle works the same way. Now I want to turn these 10 rules into a system you can use starting this week. First, perform 10 replacement tests. Pick 10 things you own and ask whether you would buy them again today. Second, activate a 24-hour waiting rule for non-essential purchases. Give your future self time to vote. Third, count your possessions in 3 categories that matter most to your spending. Do not try to organize your entire life in one weekend. Just create awareness. Fourth, automate savings on payday. Build the system before your motivation fades. Fifth, create your enough point. Decide what annual lifestyle spending would make you genuinely satisfied. Sixth, find one expense with a lifestyle multiplier and challenge the entire ecosystem, not just the original purchase. Seventh, calculate cost per use before buying something expensive. Eighth, move friction, make spending slightly harder and saving slightly easier. Ninth, schedule a weekly 5-minute declutter. 10th, track optionality. Ask yourself, how many months could I live without my paycheck? That number may be more emotionally meaningful than the size of your television. And there is one final idea that ties everything together. It is what I call the bidirectional wealth loop. Most people think wealth starts with earning more, then investing more, then eventually feeling secure. But the loop can run in both directions. When you create financial strength, you feel safer. When you feel safer, you have less psychological pressure to signal success through consumption. When you consume less, you create more financial margin. When you create more margin, your liquid resources grow. When liquid resources grow, your options increase. And when your options increase, the urge to prove yourself through stuff gets weaker. That is a bidirectional loop. Financial strength reduces consumption pressure, and reduced consumption pressure strengthens finances. This is the part most financial advice misses because it treats spending as a math problem. Spending is also an emotional problem. Consumerism offers immediate identity, status, novelty, and relief. Minimalism offers something slower and more powerful: space, time, choice, security, the ability to tell the difference between a desire and a requirement. Think back to those 2 apartments. One had the bigger television, the expensive couch, and the higher salary. The other had the quiet room, the modest lifestyle, and 18 months of savings. From the sidewalk, the first apartment may have looked wealthier. From inside a financial crisis, the second person is the one with power. Because when the car breaks, she has options. When the job disappears, she has time. When the market falls, she does not have to sell everything in panic. When a better opportunity appears, she can take it. Her wealth is not sitting on a shelf, it is sitting in her choices. That is why the core lesson is so simple. Everything you own costs money twice. And every dollar you stop forcing into consumption becomes available for something more powerful. It can become an emergency reserve. It can become an index fund contribution. It can become retirement security. It can become a year of freedom. It can become a down payment. It can become sabbatical funding. Or it can simply become the confidence of knowing that if life changes tomorrow, you do not have to panic today. The goal is not to own nothing. The goal is to make sure everything you keep earning, buying, and maintaining is helping the life you actually want. So the next time a raise hits your account, do not ask, what can I upgrade? Ask, what can I keep? The next time you want something expensive, do not ask, can I afford it? Ask, what is the cost per use? What is the carrying cost? What is the opportunity cost? What lifestyle multiplier comes with it? Would I buy it again today? And what would this money become if I left it working for me instead? Because the strongest financial move is often invisible. It is the purchase you do not make, the upgrade you delay, the subscription you cancel, the room you stop filling. The raise you do not inflate away, the money you keep liquid. The money you invest, the choice you preserve, that is real wealth. Measure wealth by optionality, not accumulation. And once you understand that, minimalist finance stops looking like giving things up. It starts looking like buying your future freedom at a discount. If this video changed the way you think about money, subscribe to David Marshall Finance. And the next time you walk into your home, take a look around. Do not count what you own, count what your possessions are costing you. Then ask one question: if everything in this room disappeared tonight, what would I actually pay to get back? Your answer might be the beginning of your financial margin.